Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2.
Woo!
We made it to Examiner Gamer Podcast. I'm your host, as always, hopefully for forever, Tristan. And I promised multiple guests. I got 2, and they both had to bail out of me because of timing.
You're stuck with me again, guys.
So we got Lauren again.
Hi.
So this might be good or bad for whoever.
It's going to be awesome. What are you talking about?
Or it might be... Maybe you just want me to go away. Maybe Lauren should be the host and I should go away. But anyway, that's what's going to be happening.
Keep those thoughts to yourselves. Don't put those in the comments.
Right. But let's just get right into it. Let's go into our games, what we've been playing, the playlist, whatever we want to talk about. And I am actually super recent, unlike last week. And for a very long time, I've been so backlogged with like retro games. So, first on my list... after a kerfuffle with publisher, I finally got the season pass to the Game of Thrones Telltale game. So I played episode 1 and 2, which 2 just came out. So I played those back to back. So it's more of the same in terms of like what it looks like. It is a little bit different than The Walking Dead because The Walking Dead and The Wolf Among Us is based on a comic book, so they went more cell-shaded. This one, since it's based on a show... Okay, so first of all, it is based on the TV show, but the characters that are using is from the books. So it's a continuation...
So they look like the TV show characters, but they act more like their book counterparts?
Well, it's just like they add stuff from the books that's not going to be in the show.
That's nice, though.
And it takes place, like, the first part of it, takes place right at the Red Wedding.
What is the voice acting? Do they just...
Everybody, HBO has all the talent on there.
That's good. That's refreshing.
Yes, they are working very closely with HBO so that everything is whatever. Anyway, so they got like a watercolor look, and it's hard to tell when you're playing it, but then actually having like video and screenshots, I've looked at it, and I'm like, wow, this actually looks like a painting. And the other thing that's different is just like Game of Thrones, where they switch viewpoints. You play as 3 characters in episode 1 and 4 characters in episode 2. And you play as this family called the Foresters, and they basically have this keep called Ironrath. And they have this wood called ironwood, which is the strongest wood possible that doesn't burn.
Adamantine.
It's like, adamantium wood. It's in the books, and they're like bannermen for the Starks. And of course, because of the whole Stark thing, they're obviously in trouble because
winter's coming.
Being in line with the Starks. And then also, like I said, this game opens with the Red Wedding. So I'm not going to get into spoilers for the show or the actual episodes. I'm just going to talk brief points.
Content-wise, I don't want to say graphic, but for lack of a better word, is it as graphic as the show is, or do they tone it down?
Yes, except there has been not a single thing of nudity.
No watercolor nudity.
No watercolor nudity, which, for better or worse, depending on what you want. Everyone looks really good as the watercolor people, except the people that they watercolor from the show. Making an actor look like a cartoon kind of character is weird, and everyone like actually sounds good. It's not like Peter Dinklage in Destiny.
Not the Dinklebot?
Yeah, he actually sounds good.
Well, he's good in the show. It's just I don't know what happened with Destiny. It's like he didn't know what he was reading, and you could tell.
I don't want to get into it. I don't think he was as bad as a lot of people were saying.
I don't think it was great bad,
either. But... And so that's the positives. It's about these. They're called the Foresters, and it's just their struggles with all kinds of drama happening, and both of them are a little slow moving in that I think for a show it's easier to jump back and forth because you can do that with a show and it's much faster. But when you're making decisions between all these characters and you're making these choices, it's very hard to make these choices because it'll wreck somebody else. So these are like the toughest choices I've had to make in any of these Telltale games. And it doesn't like flow as well because of that. Also, I don't know if it's because of switching the characters so often or what, but the engine is it's much worse than any of the other games. There's small stuff that for a story-based game, it's not whatever. There's texture pop-ins, there's blurry images, there's lip-syncing issues. This one, more than anything, there's been scenes where someone says, "The Queen is coming, the Queen is coming, the Queen is coming," and then a pause, "The Queen is coming," and the actual scene will like play out. It's like, okay, so he's like freaked out there. But the unforgivable thing with this is there's been scenes, because there's quick time events in it,
Oh,
and
no.
there's been battles where it'll like freeze, and I've died multiple times because
You haven't gotten the prompt
it
yet?
skipped like a prompt. So it's not even like my fault that it's like, I mean, I got through with like not that much trouble, but it was enough to like really just like dock it. By the time you listen to this, my review for both episodes will be up. What are you?
I have not been playing anything new, but with Majora's Mask coming out, I was like, I should probably go back. I've finished almost every single Zelda except for the Wii one. So I was like, well, I should go give that another shot. So I got my Wii, I plugged in my Wii again and loaded up Zelda. I got it, I don't know, when it came out, I just never could get over the motion controls.
Which one? You just keep on saying Zelda.
Do I? I figured by the Wii one. Skyward
There's two
Sword.
Wii ones.
There are two Wii ones, but the other one was also for GameCube. Sorry, Skyward Sword.
Speaking of watercolor games.
Yeah, it's a pretty game, but I just couldn't get over the motion controls. I finally sat down and was like, this isn't that hard. You graduated college, you can figure out some motion controls. So I did make some progress. I finally cleared through the first dungeon, and I'm on my way to the second one, and I've got a much better handle on it than I did a year or two ago when I started trying to play it. I still run around items a couple times before picking it up, but I finally am able to look in the right direction instead of running into a wall forever. And it does seem to have a lot of the Zelda charm, and it's very pretty, and the dungeon puzzles are fun. I met the villain. He's different. Yeah, maybe I'll finally get to add this to the list of Zelda games I've completed. But
what about the Navi equivalent, and also how long does it take to get going?
Because
Twilight Princess was awful.
It takes a while to get going. Like I said, it's been... So 2011, I've probably tried playing it once like every year, and I get a little further every time, and this was the first time that I've played it where I've made significant progress in the game, so...
What about the Navi? What about
she's...
Water? Fee?
Fee, yeah. She's okay. She doesn't really pop up quite as often as like Navi. She's not like, hey, listen, but yeah, I wouldn't say Fee's as annoying as Navi, but every now and then she pops up, and it just takes so long for the text to scroll. And
well, speaking of annoying mechanics that you can't turn off, I tried out the demo for Codename Steam, which is that 3DS tactics game that the Fire Emblem team...
Abraham Lincoln?
In Japan, I think I read somewhere that the game was called like Abraham Lincoln versus the Aliens or something like that.
I would play that game.
So
that would have grabbed my attention a lot quicker than Codename Steam.
Codename Steam, yeah. Well, anyway. So I played the demo for that, and it's exactly how I thought it was going to be. It's a very colorful comic book aesthetic, and it takes place in London, or starts off, and then you're just part of this brigade thing, and then all of a sudden it's like, uh-oh, aliens attack, and they're like weird tentacle monsters, and they're ice aliens as well. And then the gameplay is similar to that of Valkyria Chronicles, where you're on this map, and you're running around. You can shoot monsters, or you can collect items like little gauge that helps your steam power go up. And the steam power is used to move and to do actions. If you don't use all of your steam points in your given turn, you can go into Overwatch mode, which is similar to XCOM, where you basically, your leftover points will be used so that if a monster goes in front of you, they will automatically shoot that monster and take away those points. Like, I believe 3 points is an attack, and every single dot in your steam gauge is a direct move. And it's as challenging as some of the Fire Emblem games.
So you'd mentioned Fire Emblem, and like the ad I saw for it was comparing it to like tactical RPGs. Do you move around in like a grid system like in Fire
You wouldn't
Emblem,
notice. You wouldn't notice unless you look down. But yeah, everything is a square, but it is more. It's a little
more subtle than
yeah.
your
It's
blocks
like,
that you can move in.
You look down. It's like, okay, I am, for every Steam thing I use, I am moving one square, but it doesn't. You wouldn't even notice unless you like look down and saw. Oh, there actually is a grid there. And also the cool thing is, if you like run forward to like get an item, you can run all the way back to your starting position. You don't use the Steam because you're going back to that position.
That's really cool.
So that's nice.
I downloaded the demo, but I downloaded it last night, so I haven't had time to play it yet.
It's quite lengthy, and there's multiplayer in there too, so I definitely recommend it for those that are on the fence about it. Let's segue into your thing, which is also Fire Emblem related.
Yeah.
And that it is Fire Emblem.
Once again, I'm playing an older game, but I just haven't want to get into too much since there's some stuff coming out. So I bought some of the DLC maps for Fire Emblem Awakening, and I've been playing the Scramble Pack, which is more story-based than combat-based, and it's pretty fun. I mean, the maps are very easy, like the enemies aren't strong at all, though maybe it's because the map or the file I'm playing on I've already beaten the game, so all my characters are pretty overpowered, but it's pretty much like fluff and filler. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Persona Q with some of the dialogue. It's mainly just filler, but it's
fan
fun.
Service stuff.
Yeah, it's fan service. That's exactly what it is.
So how many levels did you get?
I got 3. Hot Springs, the Beach, and the Harvest Scramble.
You got that pack.
I got that pack.
Oh, wow. That is definitely looked like the most fan service.
It's pretty fan servicey, but when I was looking at which ones to get, it was like, it's the most heavily story one, and I'm like, that's what I want right now. I just want to see what the Fire Emblem characters are up to.
I want to look at some hot bikinis and some hot shorts and a dick popping out of it. To end this segment off, PlayStation Plus just released a new game, and it was actually a game that came out the same day as it was like free. Did you look at that Apotheon game for the PS4?
I have not.
Well, neither did I until I downloaded it, and it's essentially a God of War game meets Castlevania, I suppose.
Really? That sounds interesting.
So the aesthetic...
I like Castlevania.
The aesthetic is basically those old Greek pottery, where it's like the black against like the clay.
Yep.
So it looks exactly like that.
Like the Hercules song.
Like the Hercules song, yep. There's dancing and there's soulful music in the background the entire time, and James Woods is going after you. But basically, Zeus is denying the people his gifts from the gods. So these soldiers are like going crazy on him, and you're trying to like basically flee. And essentially, you meet Athena, and she's like, "Oh, why don't you go and kick Zeus's ass? Because my husband's being a real dick." So she zaps you up into the clouds. And then you kind of pretend that you're like a demigod because like all the demigods escape from Earth because like we're getting out of here because you're like dooming all the humans essentially. So and then the game works like a Metro game where there's like multiple worlds and progress is barred by abilities or keys or just fulfilling quests that block your way. You have a set of weapons that you can change from and they degrade. So you basically find swords and spears all over the place. So you can upgrade stuff or you can buy cool swords, but it's just easier to upgrade your actual skills for those things, like upgrading your performance with a blade or a spear or a club, which makes your attack stronger and your stamina bar like refill quicker essentially. And then you can craft items like Greek fire to burn stuff, or you have potions to heal yourself. And the game starts off rather easily when you're trying to flee your town, but then things kick up a notch once you reach Olympus. And at that point, I'm not sure after playing 2 hours if I enjoy it or not. It is fun for sure, but it's kind of misdirectionless, which is very much along the lines of, Zelda or the original Metroid, where you're trying to figure everything out on your own. And it's just kind of a, I guess, exploration game. To be blunt, I mean, there are quests to do, and there is a little bit of a story, but it's a nice game. The real big problem of the game is the controls, though. The animations are very ragdoll, so you can, get knocked around. I was fighting this boss, and the boss was like, yeah, this is, super janky, because this, wolf slammed into me, and I bounced off the walls, and I'm like, oh my gosh, whatever, you're walking, and it's fine. And you can aim with the other. You're moving with one analog stick, and you use the other one for aiming. So you could aim at someone's legs or their head, and so you can be looking at the ground while jumping. So it's one of those animations where it kind of sticks, and you just kind of feel kind of floppy.
It hangs a little bit.
Yeah, and then you hit somebody, and they'll kind of flop around, and it's just
Ragdoll, while hilarious, isn't always the best stuff.
Yeah, it's just kind of hard for aiming because sometimes I was attacking some of these wolves and I was aiming just a little towards the ground, not exactly straight center, and it wasn't contacting well, and because of it's just kind of weird. It's it's kind of cool to be able to do that with the bow and arrow and stuff for aiming, but making you do that for also the melee stuff is kind of wonky as well. So to have a game with this cool aesthetic and story and all that stuff is great. But it's unfortunate that you have to struggle with the controls in order to enjoy it. So, I mean, like I said, I only played 2 hours, so I haven't made my decision if it's... Obviously, it's too early to call it bad or good yet. I can get used to it, essentially. But it's free for PlayStation Plus members all through February, so definitely check it out. But let's get into something even more recent, and that'd be the news. So when we come back, we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. Alright, so what has been happening in the news? First of all, this is very exciting, even though it's like the most... It's kind of like having an abusive relationship and having the guy or girl, you don't want to be sexist here, you know, buying you some flowers after a long and brutal, like pushing you down the stairs, in quotes,
For
multiple...
6 years.
No, not 6 years. 2006, Lauren. So do that math.
Gosh, that's
so for 9 years, basically. We're talking, of course, about Final Fantasy 15, which was Final Fantasy Versus 13 when it was first announced in 2006. It has not come out for a long time. A couple years ago, it was changed to Final Fantasy 15.
And it's still not out.
It's still not out. Anyway, with the release of Final Fantasy Type 0 HD, which is coming out for the PS4 and Xbox One, which is a remastering of a PSP game. Okay. So Square Enix was going back and forth talking about like, yeah, we're going to have a demo in there called Episode Disguise for Final Fantasy 15, which may or may not come out with the release of that. You may get the code and be able to download it later
honestly,
down the line.
The way things were going, I was like, we're never going to see that demo.
Yes, it was just like going back and forth. I think they heard a lot from the community. I wrote a giant ranting article, which made me seem like a crazy person, talking about that.
No, you?
Talking about that and something else on Examiner, and basically just saying, why would they were talking about a limited release of the demo, which it actually still is going to be a limited release demo, but they're talking about like...
It's so stupid. It's a demo. Like,
yeah.
It's not the game.
Yeah, it's like...
Remember when demos used to be like everywhere?
I do, but that's the least of our problems, Lauren. I'm worried about Square Enix being like, well, you finally got to play it, now it's going to be another
8 years.
Yeah. So thankfully we don't have to wait 8 years for this next game, Persona 5, because it should be coming out this year in Japan. Hopefully. But a new trailer came out showing off actual gameplay, so let's dissect it real quickly. It seemed that Igor has like 2 twins, like not the previous twins, but actually like 2 little...
So not Margaret and not... Oh, I can't even think of her name. There was Theo and...
Elizabeth, yes,
thank you.
Yes, they look like 2 younger... I couldn't tell if they're boy and girl or whatever, but there's like 2 little twins.
I guess that kind of makes sense. Every game's been a new, like, Velvet Room host, so...
Palom and Porum are in there. And essentially it looks... They only show 4 playable characters. There's the Harry Potter looking dude, there's a girl, there's a guy, and there's a cat. A cat that transforms into a weird cat thing.
Which is cool. I liked Koromaru in 3, so...
And they basically look like it's going to be a superhero team. And the... it looks like everything has been revamped. They show like some school stuff. They show some riding on a train. They essentially have them hanging out in a bar, which looks exactly what they had in Catherine.
Exactly like Catherine.
And I guess they technically didn't miss last gen systems because they made Catherine and that was the Persona team. Mm-hmm. But they didn't make a Persona game for last gen consoles, which is unfortunate because the last time we got a main core Persona game was, I'm pretty sure it was 2008, and it's been a long time coming.
Mm-hmm. I'm so excited. That trailer just, like... I was excited before, but, you know, I didn't really have anything to go off of, and that new trailer just... I'm so excited now.
It looks gorgeous.
I'm even less articulate than usual.
Yeah, and they're like a superhero team, it looks like, and there's crazy, like, the animations for everything looks a lot better.
Looks really nice.
And they really actually, I was kind of afraid, like, it's going to be kind of just like a very subtle upgrade, but no, they look like they have been working on this for a long time, and they incorporated everything that they learned from Catherine into this. Mm-hmm. Seemingly, they only show 4 people, and I actually would be fine if it was just a 4-person team. But of course they're going to have more people,
probably.
I'd assume. Anyway, let's move on to this next story. Hey, Laurie, you know what's weird?
What's weird, Tristan?
The Wall Street Journal reported on a leak that Nintendo and Netflix are going to be making a live-action Zelda TV show.
I did see that.
Okay, we're all good. We're all in the clear. This is only... For those that hear the bloopers, they'll know why this is so loud. Anyway...
So live-action Zelda show on Netflix. Internet seems really upset about this.
Well, excuse me. I mean, the last show that they made was a cartoon, and it was awful.
Yeah.
So...
I never saw the cartoon. I was going to ask, like, Link talking, how was that? It's got to be a little weird.
Exactly how I said it. Excuse me. Oh, it was awful. It was so bad, but I loved it as a kid.
The article I read about it, though, was, like, obviously had no idea. Whoever wrote this had no idea what Zelda was. And they were trying to describe it, and they're like, oh, it's like a medieval fantasy. It's like Game of Thrones for the family, which I just... that's a bad description. That is the worst description of Zelda ever. I mean, Game of Thrones... Take out, like, all the adult stuff. It's basically, like, a political show.
Yeah.
I mean, Game of Thrones is basically politics.
I would call this moral, I guess, along the lines of Lord of the Rings, essentially.
Essentially, because at its heart, Zelda is about as cut and dry, good against evil as you can get. That's all Zelda is. It doesn't try to be anything deeper. It's good versus evil.
People are freaking out about this. I think people are taking this to a weird place because I'm going to tell you right now, 100%, I will bet my life on the line. People, if I'm wrong about this, I'll give you my address. You can come kill me or do whatever you want to do to me. That being said, this show will never, ever happen.
I was kind of thinking almost the same thing. It's like, they don't have anything attached to it yet. It's probably... I'm torn about how I feel about it. I'm like, it could be good, but it could also be terrible.
Like, I don't think people understood what video games really were when they were making it back in the day.
Though, to be fair, they still don't. I mean, there have been some awful video game movies, and there have been some video game movies that are maybe good movies, but they're not good to the video game that they're based. They're not good video game movies.
Not good adaptations. I just don't think video games to me are all about the experience, and maybe seeing something that takes that experience to a different place where you can only get this thing through this version, but seeing it retold.
I mean, it's a good way, an accessibility feature for people who can't play video games.
It's just like comic books.
It's only good if you can do it well. If you can't do it justice...
It's like comic book movies, they're making it for the mainstream, and they're like, maybe they'll get people interested in comic books, maybe they'll get people interested in
and it's
video
working.
games.
I mean, I know a lot of people who never read comic books, and now since the Marvel movies...
Remember when that
DC
Battleship
shows,
movie came out? And
Battleship sales went through...
Yeah, Battleship sales went through. We're like, I need to get this board game!
But, I'm really on the fence about the Zelda movie. If it gets made, I will definitely give it a shot, unless the trailers look awful. But right now, I really don't know how I feel about it, and I guess it would just depend on how they handle it.
You know who I think would make a really good Zelda thing? Genndy Tartakovsky, because he did the Samurai Jack show.
Okay.
And also Dexter. He also did the Star Wars, the good Clone Wars cartoons.
Okay.
And then it was all about very subtle actions, not a lot of talking, telling the story through very subtle things, which is exactly how some video games tell, like Portal. It's not so much story based as it is finding clues in the environment and stuff like that, and
it's subtle.
Journey, just like that. It's there's a story there, but you tell it yourself.
That's what makes me nervous. The thing that makes me most nervous is the live action, and I'm just afraid it's going to take away some of the magic that Zelda has. Because the quirkiness. But it could be fine. I'm not saying it's going to be awful. It's too early to tell, and like you said, I'm not sure if it's even gonna.
It's never gonna happen. Sorry, guys, it's never gonna happen. It's one of those things where they said a couple years ago that they want to outreach their properties as other stuff because I guess it took them, it happened in the 90s for all their properties being milked over and being terrible. So I guess it took them 20 years to be like, okay, we're going to lend our properties to a bunch of other people and see how that works out. And we'll basically, if things don't work out again, we'll see Nintendo properties being the dark ages where no one ever gets to touch them ever again. For probably another 20 years, and by that point, we'll all be dead. So, Zelda. Kind of an obscure thing. Let us get to something even more obscure, which are the game ideas. This time, they're a little horrifying.
Uh-huh.
We'll be right back. Hey everybody, it's your host the most, it's Tristan. Are you liking the show so far? I really hope you are. I can't stress this enough, I really want to hear feedback. So drop me a line on YouTube or on my Examiner page, anywhere you feel like it. Let me know what you like about the show, what you don't like, what you want to see added. And of course, if you want to support me, you can always subscribe to the YouTube channel, as well as follow my writing on Examiner.com. That's EXAMINER, Examiner.com. It's the place to go for everything you want to know. Check it out. Now, back to the show. Alrighty then, folks. So, time for game ideas. This time, we are basing them on horror and classic films because recently in the news, there's been talks for a long time of reviving Friday the 13th. Well, it's actually happening. It's called The Slasher Volume 1. And it's coming this summer, I think, for the PS4, PS3, and PC. And I think you're playing Jason in them and you're killing people. Not too sure on the details about that stuff, but there's been a lot of games coming out recently that are milking some franchises and bringing back from the dead, which they have seemingly no right to, but actually kind of work out. Last year there was a game based on aliens, and that was actually quite good. There was
compared to Colonial Marines.
There was the Shadow of Mordor, which is based on Lord of the Rings, which they actually had fairly good track record in terms of video games. And then, of course, we had the most infamous of all terrible bad game series, which is South Park, and that was my game of the year last year. So, that being said, this Friday the 13th game may be cool, maybe not, but we decided to go down the list and talk about maybe some horror games and also just some movies that would make good video games. So, without me prattling on anymore, of course we gotta talk about Nightmare on Elm Street because, I mean, you can just the dreamscapes you can do with that.
You could do some cool dream stuff in that.
Yeah, I thought, like, one of the coolest things about the dream stuff in Evil Within was, like, how kind of kooky and weird it was.
Like reality bending and physics bending. Like some of the coolest shots in Evil Within is when you're falling and then all of a sudden like you hit a wall but it's a hallway and it's just cool. You can add like stuff that you wouldn't ever be able to make a reason for in your game. You can
make fun of video games without having it like, look at this one. This one's based off of the Animaniacs. Well, that's a really weird
That's a really weird
right. This one's based off Adventure Time. And this one's based off of My Little Pony. And they don't have to like scream it at you if they just have like subtle things or look at
I'd
this.
really like to see the Nightmare on Elm Street with the Animaniacs crossover now. Thanks for that.
Yeah, just those in my mind, yes. Then of course we got Poltergeist, which there actually have been some like not Poltergeist things.
If you want to do that, it's perfect time because the new movie's coming out, which I'm unsure how I feel about that, but
it could be kind of. Did you ever play Gone Home?
No, I did not play that.
Okay, well, it could essentially be like you essentially exploring a house.
Yeah, it could be a good haunted house simulator game, pretty much.
Yeah, that's all it needs to be. Maybe you're trying to, like, get rid of ghosts, but you don't have to have too many mechanics in there. Maybe you just have to, like, run away to a different room so that this knife doesn't kill you.
It could be like that Wii Grudge game, which pretty much is just a haunted house simulator where you go through and it reacts to how much you jump with
There's
the Wii
a Grudge
remote.
game, like the Ringu, that Grudge?
Yeah. It's basically just a haunted house simulator. You play as different characters and pretty much it tracks like how quickly you move through the area and like how much your Wii remote bounces around the screen and judges your fear level. But pretty much it's just you're walking around and collecting batteries and trying to get from point A to point B while things jump out at you and make that little
So you can do definitely something if you want to do Poltergeist. I mean, you could, be brave and try something on your own without the protection of Poltergeist or something else, especially have like the cool mechanic. However, having a publisher behind you and a name will actually make it sell more. But then again, the track record for these games aren't necessarily great. So if someone sees a Poltergeist game, they may say like, whatever.
Yeah.
Ignore that. Obviously. Anyway, let's move on, though, to The Exorcist. Doesn't have to be based off of the Exorcist movie. It could be post-Exorcist, like, this is a
So
sequel.
it's like Exorcist 2 or Exorcist 3.
Yes. Was there an Exorcist? There was an Exorcist 2, right?
There was an Exorcist 3, I believe.
There was?
I believe. And then there was Exorcist the Beginning.
Well,
so you could also do the prequel. You could work in the prequel world. But...
Okay, let's just base it off Exorcist is so real. It's maybe based off that sect of the Catholic Church they talked about in The Exorcist. And that you're just going to different people's houses. And again, you're like going through, maybe there's some haunting stuff that you got like, control with your Christianity powers by the power of Jesus Christ.
I'm just not sure what the gameplay would be like in that. What is it, like Exorcist Simulator? Like Farm Simulator 2015, Exorcist Simulator 2015?
Yeah, I mean, you go into the houses and essentially maybe every single demon has to be conquered a different way.
That's true.
It could be...
You could do something cool with that, like, no demons conquered the same way.
It could be like the Telltale games where everything is like decision based, like I could save this girl and conquer the demon this way, or I could kill her just to make sure the demon goes away, and it could have consequences or whatever. And it just be quick time events. I know that's very kind of a lazy thing people talk about, but
they make good games.
In terms of like adventure games, that's where they belong. In terms of like having an action game and then having quick time events, that's stupid.
That's stupid, and that tricks the player into putting the controller down when they think they can.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm fine with quick time events as long as they're in the appropriate kind of genre.
I like the Telltale games and even the David Cage games that are pretty much like playable movies. I like those kind of games.
Well, two podcasts in a row, we already talking about David Cage again. Let's keep that track record going, Lauren. But moving on, here is another rough pick. And again, bear with me.
I mean, truthfully, I kind of ran out of ideas for horror movies, so I got this really random one. So,
the Resident Evil movies are great in their own respects in that they don't give a flying flip about any of the story in the Resident Evil games.
Loosely based on Resident Evil.
Very loosely based.
The second one is probably the closest to a game.
Sure.
I mean,
in that they have like cameos.
At least like they're in Raccoon City. There are characters. It's kind of roughly the plot of Get Out of the City.
And that's exactly when things jump the shark to a mega degree.
And
they don't just jump the shark. They take a rocket ship and fly over it.
Wuss.
He sucked. Oh, it's so disappointing with that. Anyway, I want a video game based off of the Resident Evil movies. I want it to be a weird Mila Jovovich simulator and a super weird action game.
I'm sure all you have to do is like push that to Paul W.S. Anderson and he'd be like, oh yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, Capcom, why don't I have my own video game series like we do? Well, it's called Resident Evil.
Let's have it star my wife though. It'll be even better.
Oh my gosh, yeah, she's doing the motion capture, and she's on like a documentary talking about like, oh, it's a very interesting thing, whatever. And she's a very powerful character.
Then like everyone else will talk about wearing the motion capture suit and how weird it was, and yeah, it's game rights itself.
I'm kind of mad that Paul has like strictly made her be his bitch in all of his movies. Like, she can't be in anything else, because I actually liked her as an actress, and then she got into Resident Evil.
I haven't seen her in anything else. She was in Musket... Oh, that was Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yep. She was in Ultraviolet, which was a atrocious movie, so...
Well, we'll just have the Fifth Element to always go back to.
Yep, Fifth Element. Let's talk about Mila Jovovich for a while.
Why not? She's fine.
But no, seriously, I think that would be a really crazy video game. And let's see, who should we have it be directed by? Swery.
I could see the combat in
Swery should direct this game.
Swery does it. I don't know how the combat will be.
Swery and Paul W.S. Anderson should make this game together for Capcom.
It'd be super meta.
This will be its own video game idea segment, in which what do we want for a Swery and Paul W. Anderson game based on Resident Evil. Anyway, that's that, and I'm losing steam on talking about these movies.
I thought of Poltergeist and a couple other like classic horror ones like The Shining. I wasn't really sure what you could do with that would be different than Poltergeist, kind of a haunted house simulator. I mean, there's a little bit in The Shining about, going back into when the hotel was in its prime and, the different rooms that had stuff happen. So you could have kind of like maybe an adventure game and going into rooms and seeing all the horrible stuff that happened in certain hotel rooms and stuff.
To tie it into the Game of Thrones stuff, I think that the easiest and safest way to make a intellectual property into a game would be to have Telltale do it.
Just have Telltale make all your intellectual property.
You just have to give them more money so that they can rehaul their engine, for crying out loud.
And then the one that I thought of was The Stand, which... not really a movie, it's a miniseries and a book. But I thought you could do a lot with that because it's like, America, or maybe it's the world, I don't remember, it's been a while since I read the book, has been wiped out by our super flu and there's only a few survivors and, they're traveling across country. So you have this whole environment of destroyed America, which, yes, it's a little bit like The Last of Us, but I think The Stand has enough different thematic elements that it wouldn't be like Last of Us, and there are no...
Last enough!
There are no spore zombies.
That sounds like the new James Bond movie. Last enough! Are you coming?
But I think they could, you could take the canon characters and, do the story canon-wise, but you could also just use the world of The Stand and, have, a BioWare, a Mass Effect Dragon Age game where you, create your own character and you have, morality choices you can make. Because at its heart, The Stand's, good versus evil. It's about these people trying to go destroy this supernatural evil creature. And
isn't there just someone walking in a desert or something?
They walk all over. There's different groups coming from all over.
Journey.
It's like Journey with evil.
Resident
Evil. It could be a really cool game. You have the Mass Effect Dragon Age dialogue options.
So game ideas. What are your ideas for some horror games made into classic films? Are we right on what we said? Are we wrong? Probably hear a lot about probably the Resident Evil stuff, but whatever. I don't care. Yeah. So let's just
get in. Show. You can say what you want.
All right. And speaking of wrong things, I have something controversial to talk about, and we'll get to that in the next segment. All right, for this extra life, like I teased before, it could be anything. It could be a rant, it could be a story, it could be something other than video games in the news.
It's another rant, isn't it?
This time, it's another... It's not so much a rant as it is an educational segment. And
the more you know.
The more you know, really, seriously. So I was at a friend's house a couple days ago, and we were on Netflix, and we saw that PBS added a bunch of animal documentaries. And if you don't know this, raccoons are my favorite animal ever, and there's one called Raccoon Nation.
I actually didn't know that.
And I thought that, this might be interesting. We're drinking some wine, having a good time, and we just like cute things. So we watched this documentary on the cute little raccoons, and it was like, oh, kind of cute. You learn some things about them, like washing their paws and all kinds of other stuff. And apparently Canada has the highest urban population of raccoons in Toronto. They also went to Germany, and there's this guy talking about like making traps for them climbing up like banisters and stuff like that. They had these weird, crazy spikes. But essentially, in America, Toronto, and Germany, we're essentially training these raccoons to be smarter than these things. So they're evolving past these things. And they
raccoons.
Yeah, they talked about how raccoons are the most adaptable animal on the planet. They can live in a beach, they can live in a desert, they can live anywhere because they can learn how to get along. So, of course, we get to Japan. Now, here's some crazy stuff that I did not know that kind of blew my mind, in that it seemed like it wasn't true, that it was one of those wacky Japanese things that you'd think would only be in a cartoon, but no. So, back in the 80s or 90s, there was a cartoon called Rascal Raccoon. It was about a little boy that befriends a raccoon in the woods. They have adventures together, and then he releases him into the woods at the end of the show, and people liked the show so much they wanted to get their own pet raccoons. So, the Japanese people imported baby raccoons from America,
baby rockets.
And they were fine the entire time, and then they started to get ornery when they were older. So, based on the show, they thought it was a good idea to release them into the wild. This created a huge problem because they bred, and now they are essentially taking over Japan, and they have a no tolerance policy. And also, to interject here real quick before moving on to the conclusion, I actually played the video game. Both Brian and I, for one of our earlier Bizarre Bits episode, it was Aragamo Rascal. And it's basically like a Tetris game starring this raccoon. And we're like, oh, what a cute raccoon. What a weird thing. I wonder if this is based on anything. And flash forward years later, I find out it is. And it's like the cause of collapse for like Japan. The way in which this was told was they had a bunch of monks praying against these raccoons. They had traps all over the monastery. They showed basically the raccoons were like destroying the monastery, like chewing up wood and stuff because they're just trying to find places to live. And the crazy thing about this is it was their own dang fault. They watched an anime and they're like, these looks like whatever, and they're like, oh no, this is more than we can handle. Let's just release them into the woods, because that's apparently what you do, because that's what the anime taught us. And now they have a huge problem.
Don't breed.
Yeah, they don't breed. They don't have anything.
Raccoons are really cute. But man, are they a menace. So I live out in, like, the woods. And, I mean...
Literally the woods. She has no home, folks.
I live in a tree.
Support our show. You need to help us support our show. That's why we have our special links for all these special episodes. Lauren needs a place to live.
I need a place.
Please donate.
It's cold outside.
We live in Minnesota. I'm not sure if we'd ever talked about that.
We got this high deck. It's like 20 feet off the ground. And I hear a crash out there one night and go outside, and I didn't go outside. I just turned on the deck light, and there is this raccoon. He's huge, but he's adorable. He's cute. And I'm like, oh, I'm just going to leave him be. He destroyed the back deck and ran off with the bird seed. It's in a kitty litter container where we keep the bird seed, and he chewed into the container and just took it off. That's the second kitty litter container we've lost of bird seed. The first one was to a bear, and I was not going to mess with the bear.
There was actually some really scary parts of that documentary, too, because I'm like, oh, I knew they could use their hands very, deftly. There's one part where they opened up a house.
They're like velociraptors.
They can open up a door, and I think it was a stage place because obviously they had cameras in this house, and they let the raccoons do whatever. I mean, they had cameras all over the place. Mm-hmm. They even had like one in the sink so they could see it from above. But I don't know how it happened. I imagine they just had they put a raccoon next to a house, and then he's probably like, I guess I'll go in here, and he did. So that happened. I was like, yeah, it's just a not a knob door. He just had to brace it open. The scariest thing that happened was they planted a tent. They had the raccoon go into this tent, and essentially he was trying to open up the zipper, right? And he couldn't get it. So he was like sticking his nose into the tiny hole he made while opening the zipper with his hands, and he was able to like get in there. And I was like, oh my god, raccoons are adorable but also terrifying because we are teaching them. There's other stuff where they showed them like, did you know that they can collapse their spines in order to essentially like make it into like small crevices? I was like, oh, that's also kind of horrifying. So that's your educational moment.
The more you know.
Japan is weird and they made a problem for themselves, and raccoons are adorable menaces. Well, Lauren, this was an educational show, wasn't it?
It was very educational. I feel like we should go out and get a pet raccoon now and raise it.
We talked about raccoons and scat and
a little bit of politics.
Greek people and Persona and Netflix and all kinds of awesome things. So if you have anything you want to tell us to do in the next show, any ideas, any comments on this show, be sure to contact on the pages below. On YouTube, on the Bandcamp page, on my Twitter, on Examiner. Be sure to do all that stuff and help us stay alive against the raccoon hordes that are coming after us.
I don't have a house to protect me from these.
Yes. When she said deck, she meant she was living in a treehouse. And...
It's just a big tree branch, really. It's just bigger than the other ones. I call it a deck.
Lauren has a luxurious deck in her tree. So, yeah, we need help for her. And, hopefully she won't be in the next episode. Or maybe I won't be in the next episode. Which one would you rather see go away, me or Lauren?
Choose wisely.
Choose wisely. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to go watch Best Call Saul. So, see y'all next time.
Boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, subscribe, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, subscribe.